government's job to bail them out. What's the response to that?
I understand that argument, and they are high-tax states. Governor Cuomo also said in the last couple of days that you can't just keep taxing wealthy people over and over again. The statistic, something like 1% of the residents of New York pay something like 45% of the income taxes. So you run that risk. But there's a couple other points to be made. First, you could argue that the state and without the state and local tax deduction, it's kind of a form of double taxation. You're taxed once by the feds, you're taxed once by the states, and you don't get any credit back for having paid to the state. That's one argument. The second argument is, it is still true, and we can do charts on this one day, that the more prosperous states, mostly in the north, still are disproportionate losers when it comes to how federal money is allocated. How much aid they get, how many bases they get, all that kind of stuff. So there's still a big transfer of federal income, in effect, from New York and places like that to places like Mississippi or Alabama and places like that. So there's a lot of puts and takes in our fiscal policy and in our tax code, and I'm not sure that this is particularly fair. Remember one other thing: this was done, one, to punish the blue states who hadn't voted for the Republicans, and two, to find revenue to pay for those individual tax cuts that you referred to at the beginning, which go disproportionately to the rich.
Rich, of course.
Jonathan Lemire, you know, this is part of another underlying problem for Democrats, and it has to do with, again, how geographically divided the country is. The Democrats obviously very strong on the coast, but for the most part weak once you go west of the Hudson River all the way out to, you know, Nevada. It seems, again, while everybody's focusing on Donald Trump, Democrats have got to figure out how to start winning Senate races again in the middle of America, because until they do that, every judge that is appointed to the Supreme Court is going to be a conservative. But again, we've got Claire McCaskill on at 7 o'clock to talk about this. This is a party, don't you think, that desperately needs to figure out how to start winning in the middle of America again?
Joe, I think that's exactly right. We see how divided this country is geographically, how polarized it is. And Democrats do run a risk of becoming simply the party of the coastal states, you know, where the big urban centers, the big population centers are. There are, of course, a few exceptions in the Midwest, like Chicago, making Illinois a reliable blue state. But that's why, for Democrats, there is some heat, too, and some interest in some of the more Midwest candidates for president. Amy Klobuchar being one. And she very, very, very dramatically, very specifically suggested it made her pitch over the weekend as she stood there in the snow, saying, I'm going to be the Midwest candidate. That this election in 2016 was lost in these states. It was lost in Pennsylvania, it was lost in Michigan, it was lost in Wisconsin. And she even made a joke saying how she would campaign in Wisconsin, which of course Hillary Clinton famously did not in the stretch run of the campaign. So I think there is some recognition in the party, at least in certain quarters of the party, that they do, not just as for president, but as you say, win more local races in states like these, win Senate races, excuse me. So they have the ability to help shape the judiciary, which right now, of course, Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump is arguably their biggest accomplishment, is bringing conservative judge after conservative judge after conservative judge on the court.
So we'll talk 2020 up next. Axios is looking at the Democrats' social media phenom who is not AOC. We'll tell you who that is next.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories, and you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.